Hello. Hello friends, hello internet, hello YouTube once again. Oh god, it feels so weird to be talking to a camera again. It is Friday the 23rd of June 2023. It's been a year and a half since I last spoke to you guys about my teeth. I am so sorry it's been this long. I know loads of you have been commenting on the videos, asking for updates, asking if I'm done with it, and well, I've got quite a lot to update you on. In fact, I have an entire document here that I'm going to attempt to work through now for you guys. But the first thing I want to say is, like, you haven't missed that much. It's been quite repetitive. It's been pretty boring, really, the past year. There hasn't been that much going on until recently, if I'm honest. I've had multiple rounds of refinements, and they've all been trying to move a particular tooth that wasn't moving. So we're talking about really small movements at this stage. My teeth probably haven't changed that drastically since my last video, but yeah, I've been spending the past 18 months trying to work past that, and we have made some progress. I've also been pretty busy, guys. I mean, I'm still in the van, as you can see. I'm still living in the van. It will be 2 years in the van next week, which is pretty crazy. And you know, I've been all over the place. After the last video, I went to Scotland. Last summer I went to Europe, all the way down to Spain. Just recently I've been in a show here in Boston at the theatre. All kinds of crazy stuff, if I'm honest, that have kind of prevented me from, you know, sitting down and reflecting on the past 18 months. It's quite difficult putting together all of the things that have happened over such a long period of time in order for me to speak about them and for you guys to understand them. But here I am attempting to do that for you right now. So I saw a few people in the comments on the last video ask how I'm doing, assuming I was finished by now, but unfortunately I am not. I am still wearing Invisalign, and I think this is aligner 102, if you can believe that. I was estimated 18 months. It's now approaching 3 years, so 36 months. And yeah, essentially we've been trying to move this lateral incisor that just wasn't coming down. Even after a few rounds of refinements, it still wasn't moving. So I'm now wearing a rubber band, and I'll talk more about that shortly. But on the whole, my teeth are in a pretty good place. I am quite happy with where these are now. And I've got about 10 aligners left, which may change, but I'll talk about that as well. But beyond that, like, I don't really need anything else done. You know, we're almost there, and I hope you'll agree they're looking pretty good. I've got a crown going on in a few weeks. That's gonna get in the way of the aligners. The other thing is, I've got a weird issue with my bite now. Something is quite uncomfortable with my back teeth, and I'm a little bit nervous that that might also delay things if we need to correct that. But I'll talk about that in a little while. So to kick things off, I just thought I'd quickly show you a bunch of before and after photos, which are always pretty cool to look at. So here we have one with my teeth closed. This is aligner number 1, all the way back in August 2020. And a fairly recent photo from May with aligner 99. This is just a couple of aligners back. And yeah, I hope you'll agree, things are looking pretty good. I've got a pretty normal, straight looking set of top and bottom teeth there. It's worlds apart from that first photo, isn't it? It's really quite insane. On that left lateral incisor there, you will see a really big attachment. It's actually a hook that's used for attaching the rubber band. A lot of the other attachments have actually gone. I've only got one here on that canine now. I don't think I have any more anywhere else, which is pretty nice. Let's look at the other photo with the teeth open. I really like this comparison. You can see how far those teeth have moved. They're completely different. I haven't got that perfect center line. I'm not going to get that, and I was never expecting it. it isn't something that I ever noticed, and it's not something I really care about going forward. What I really cared about was those top teeth that were pointing in all different directions, and you can see we've definitely resolved that. The only thing that might be a slight imperfection, if you see in that bottom photo, the lateral incisor on the right, because that had so far to move, it was pushed quite far back. It isn't sat in a perfect vertical position. It has got a slight tilt to it. You might notice that in the photo. I don't know if we can resolve that, and to be honest, at this stage, I'm not worried about that either. It's only really obvious if you kind of look at the gum line, and you can see that there's kind of less gum visible between those teeth. But again, not something I'm worried about. I don't want to prolong this anymore. You know, I'm quite happy with how these are looking. So one last photo is always a pretty gruesome one to look at, but a bottom view. This is just insane. I mean, this shows how far those top teeth have moved. My God, going from this really gnarly set of top teeth that are all pointing different ways to this beautiful, smooth, curved arch. It's insane how this was possible with just a load of plastic. These slow and subtle movements have moved these teeth so far. It's really quite something. You might notice in this photo is a weird looking filling in that premolar. That is a tooth that I'm about to have rebuilt in a couple of weeks at a private dentist. So I had to get a root canal on this, and in the meantime there's this temporary filling. So the next thing I want to talk through is basically timeline of the past 18 months. Now, it's been pretty hard to kind of remember and put into some sense of order all the things that have happened, because I've had so many trips back to the orthodontist, and I've had a lot of trips back to my dentist in between that. So there's been a lot of stuff going on in parallel that I've had to kind of try and piece together so that I can try and explain it in some detail for this video. So let me take you back to the last video, which was December 2021. In that video, I mostly talked about, you know, living with Invisalign through the summer, through the festivals. I talked about a lot of delays I had. I was wearing aligners for up to a month in some cases, and I think I'd just got my first set of refinements back in that video. So if we jump forward to April in the following year, which was 2022, I went back to my orthodontist and we started noticing that this lateral incisor, which are notorious for not moving, not tracking with the aligners, it wasn't really fitting the aligners very well. There was quite a big gap. The aligners were trying to kind of bring it down a little bit, not far, you know, we're talking about a couple of millimeters, but it just wasn't moving. So in that appointment I got rescanned, and I was to go back a few weeks later for what would be my second set of refinements. Before that happened, I had a visit to my dentist, and they had noticed a filling that really needed replacing. I had a big piece of a tooth break off years and years ago, and I had a really big filling put in place. But this dentist had noticed that that had some holes in it. It was letting bacteria in, and she said we ought to replace it. She also informed me that it would be risky to replace it, but no more riskier than leaving it to see what would happen. So I agreed to this. I said, yeah, let's have a go at replacing this filling. But I was actually due to go on a big trip in the van. I was about to go down to Spain for like 3 months, and I didn't really want to have this filling done if there was going to be a risk of it being problematic. So I postponed that until I got back from the trip. Shortly after that, I went back to the orthodontist, picked up my refinements, and essentially off I went to Europe in the van with this brand new set of aligners. I can't remember how many there were, probably 20 or 30. But at the time, I thought this will be my last set of aligners. I'll work through these until the end, and then I'll be done. That wasn't to be the case. So I get back from Europe, and I have a checkup at the orthodontist, and still this lateral incisor was not moving. It just wasn't coming down. I still had a gap in the trays. So on the 23rd of August I got rescanned again, and a few weeks later I would go back and pick up my third set of refinements. Before I picked those up, I actually had another appointment at my dentist where they finally replaced this big filling. So that got done. It was absolutely fine. I didn't notice any issues, and off I went. A few weeks later, this is now September 2022, I picked up that third set of refinements from my orthodontist. Now, this was quite a surprising event because I was expecting, you know, maybe 20 odd aligners, and they actually surprised me with 3 boxes containing 42 aligners. And at the time it was really confusing. I didn't know why I had so many, and the assistant that gave me these aligners couldn't figure it out either. They had to go away and find out why I had this many of aligners at this stage in my treatment. Well, a few days later I think I spoke with my specialist there, and she told me that this new set of 42 aligners was actually designed to rotate this canine on my right hand side, because it was pointing out of my gums at quite an angle because it had moved so far. Although the bottom of it was more or less in the right position, the root was still quite far across, so it kind of came down at an angle. And she told me what they were trying to do with this new set of aligners is to move the whole root of that canine slightly so that it would be sitting in a straight line and not coming across like this. So that made sense, but it was kind of weird that they didn't inform me that that was happening until I got these aligners. And then I was like, that sounds okay, I see what you mean. It was quite obviously at an angle, but I hadn't really considered that that was something that we could also fix. It was something they just kind of surprised me with. But anyway, off I go. I take these aligners and I start working through this new set of 42 refinement trays. A few weeks later I start experiencing some discomfort, some pain that was kind of like toothache but a little bit different in this tooth that I had the filling replaced. This concerned me a bit because I just had this filling replaced. She said there would be risks, and if there was some kind of infection going on I needed to find out. So off I go back to the dentist, and sure enough, a few weeks after having this filling replaced I had now got an infection in it, which is just what I needed. So initially I think they gave me a round of antibiotics to try and calm it down, and initially I think it helped. I didn't have any pain for a little bit of time. In the meantime I then had another checkup at my orthodontist. So this is now in the new year, this is February 2023. They have a look at the state of things with these third set of refinements that I'm on, and once again we can see quite early on that this tooth was not tracking. There was once again a gap in these trays. I was quite clear to the orthodontist at this point, and I said, you know, how long can we keep doing these refinements? It's been like a year now where I've had multiple rounds of refinements. This isn't changing. What else can we do? I had to be quite bold at that stage because I couldn't just keep getting rescanned and sent off with new aligners. We needed another solution, and she agreed to that and offered me a solution, which was to put what they call a slingshot or a rubber band around this tooth to pull it towards the aligners. She said it would be a matter of weeks probably for it to pull the tooth into the aligner, and obviously I loved the sound of that. I was like, let's do it, let's not waste any more time, give me these rubber bands and send me on my way. So with that I had these great big attachments. Well, they're not attachments, they're like big hooks fitted on the front and the back of this lateral incisor. Essentially from that day onwards I had to wear these tiny little rubber bands all day, all night around this tooth, which took a bit of getting used to, but if I'm honest, after a couple of days, like, I had it down. It was super easy to deal with, really. Let me show you what these rubber bands look like, and really how easy it is to get these things on and off. So here's my Invisalign tray here. I keep a bunch of these bands in here so they're just ready to go. I'm not wearing the band right now because I'm only wearing them at night at this point. Essentially, I have to grab the band. I tend to put it between my thumb and my finger here, and I need to reach inside to hook it on the back. Once I've got it on the back, I can pull it round and hook it on the front. That looks something like this. There it is. Getting it off is basically impossible with your fingers. So I carry around this, what was a toothpick. I cut the end off it because this little pointy bit is super useful for grabbing the band and taking it off the hooks. So again, this is super easy once you get the feel for it. Just like that. So not too bad at all. So what next? Off I go using these rubber bands. So the next thing that came up is another appointment at my dentist, and this time they actually took an x-ray of this tooth that I was having a bit of discomfort with, and sure enough, this x-ray actually showed the infection. You could see it. There was like this dark shadow or something. My dentist immediately said, you know, we're gonna have to do something with this. It's either a root canal or we will pull the tooth out. Now, I do not want to lose any more teeth. I didn't look after my teeth as a child, and I lost a lot of them. I can't be losing any more teeth, especially, you know, coming this far, spending this much money on Invisalign. I really want to keep as many teeth as I can. So I've never had root canal treatment before. It was quite a scary prospect, but I had to give it a go. But the weird thing with this was my dentist didn't want to do it herself. She said with this kind of tooth it would be quite complicated. She said the roots were quite long. There's at least 3 of them, because they don't actually know how many roots there are until they go digging around. So because of the complexity, she actually referred me to a specialist endometrist, someone who specialises in root canals. This was obviously going to cost a lot of money, and I had to think about it, but the more I thought about it, I just thought, I can't not do this. Like, I can't come this far, pay this much money on Invisalign, and then, you know, paying a little bit more and having a tooth ripped out. You know, that would have been quite miserable, if I'm honest. So I just had to suck that up and accept that I'm going to have to pay a bit of money to look after this tooth and keep this tooth, which has to be worth it, right? So I left my dentist and essentially waited for a call from this private clinic for a consultation with them. The next thing that happened, this is now kind of approaching spring this year, in March. I'd been progressing through those 42 aligners, and I suddenly got to one of the aligners and they just would not fit my teeth at all. It was a complete surprise. I got told I could change. I took some out, I grabbed my new ones, put them in, and they just would not go on my teeth. And I kind of freaked out, and I was like, what the hell is going on here? And you know, I tried a few things. I tried the chewies and all of that, but something was different about these trays. They would not stay on my teeth. And I take a closer look at the aligners, and I realise that the ones I've just taken out had all of these spaces for the attachments, because I had quite a lot of attachments at that point. And these aligners that I was moving into had no spaces for these attachments. So at this point in the plan, the attachments were supposed to be removed, but that didn't happen. It was a bit of an error on my orthodontist's part, because I never got invited back for any appointment to have these attachments removed. I noticed that. I sent them a message and said, look, these new aligners don't have spaces for attachments. I think my attachments are meant to come off. I think they said come in the following day. It was pretty quick, so I went back there and had the attachments removed, and sure enough, these aligners just popped straight on, and they felt great. So that was a bit of a strange surprise, but it wasn't a big deal really. Right, so my next appointment at the orthodontist was a few weeks later, the 22nd of March, where I was essentially having a checkup to see whether the rubber band was doing its job and whether this tooth was moving. To be honest, I had noticed a massive improvement over the 3 or 4 weeks that I was using these rubber bands. I could see that that gap was getting smaller. The only thing was, if I took the trays out and put them back in, you know, if I was eating or something, it kind of looked like the tooth was perhaps moving back, or the tray just wasn't quite sitting correctly. And because of that, they decided to keep me in these rubber bands for a few more weeks. It was only meant to be like 4 weeks, but now they was asking me to keep them in for another 6 weeks, I think. So that would make it 10 weeks with these rubber bands. So off I go, no problem. I'll keep using these rubber bands. I'd got quite into it. It wasn't a big deal. Just carry on with it. A few weeks later, on the 6th of April, I paid a visit to this specialist in root canal treatments. I had a consultation with them. He had a look, seemed to like what he saw. He reckoned he could do it. There's always complications with these things, and he gave me a whole bunch of paperwork with the associated risks. But this was a guy that spends all of his time, he'd spent many years doing purely root canal treatments, and he seemed pretty confident that he could sort this out. He gave me quite a bit of confidence, if I'm honest. Like, this guy seemed really sound. He listened to me, he explained exactly what had been going on with his tooth and what he was going to do to resolve it. So yeah, I signed up to have this root canal treatment done. A few weeks later, we're now in May, the 3rd of May, I'm back at my orthodontist for yet another checkup on the rubber band, and by this point I'd had them in for at least 10 weeks, and they were pretty happy with what they were seeing. This lateral incisor had indeed come down, and it was fitting the aligner pretty well. I could see it, they could see it, but just to be on the safe side, for whatever reason, they said keep wearing the bands, but only at night, just to make sure that that tooth doesn't, you know, go back to where it was and cause that gap again. So I was like, okay, fair enough, that's not an issue, wearing the band at night. I'd got used to wearing it, you know, all day. The only major thing with wearing this rubber band is having the massive hooks on your tooth. But to be honest, they haven't been an issue. I've had no discomfort with those whatsoever. So I really wasn't bothered about continuing with those rubber bands. A few weeks later, on the 24th of May, this is the most recent appointment I've actually had, just last month. And this is where I had the root canal treatment done by this specialist. I was pretty nervous about this appointment, I'm not going to lie. I never had this kind of treatment before. You read all kinds of horror stories with root canal treatments, but honestly it was a really interesting experience. I was about an hour and a half, I think, in the chair, and it was absolutely fine, if I'm honest. I was completely numbed up. I was very comfortable throughout the whole procedure. He was talking me through what he was doing, and you know, there were points where I could absolutely feel what he was doing, and it's such a bizarre feeling when he's got the file and he's up and down the roots of your teeth. You know, I could feel that happening, but it didn't hurt. It was weird, but it didn't hurt. So he cleaned out these roots. There was only 3 of them in the end. He filled them. I've actually got a photo of the x-ray, and then put a temporary filling in place. Yeah, that was honestly not a bad experience whatsoever. So yeah, I left this clinic, had no issues with this tooth afterwards. I was quite impressed, to be honest, with what this guy did. Like, it sounded like quite a complex procedure, but it was no trouble at all, and I've had no issues with this tooth since then. I do still have a temporary filling in here, and I'm back in just a few weeks. I think they're going to scan it first, and I then go back a few weeks later to have a type of crown fitted, essentially. It's not a proper crown because there's not a lot of the tooth left, but it's something called an onlay. So something's going to be created specifically to fit in the gap in this tooth. That's about as much as I understand it. In terms of my orthodontist, I also have an appointment booked in with them next month. So the 11th of July, in a couple of weeks' time, I'll be back there just for another checkup, essentially, and they're gonna see how these trays are fitting. They might assess the rubber band situation again, but I'm not too fussed about that, whatever they decide at this stage, because at this stage I technically only have 10 trays left, but I think that might still change. So that completes the timeline of events since my last video. There's only a couple more bits I just want to mention. So on the whole, I'm pretty happy with the state of my teeth. If for some reason I had to just quit Invisalign today and be done with it, you know, it wouldn't be a bad thing. I've been doing this, wearing these things in my mouth for nearly 3 years, and I just can't believe that's the case, but here we are. I'd be lying if I said my patience wasn't wearing thin. There's a lot of things that have slipped, if I'm honest, in terms of my routine and my kind of general attitude towards wearing these things. In the past year particularly, I've become pretty relaxed with wearing these things in my mouth. There are definitely days where I'm pushing it quite a bit and not wearing them for big chunks of the day, and I don't have an excuse for it other than just being pretty tired of it, and it's no longer a thing in the front of my mind. For the first year and a half, I was on it. In the past year, not so much. I do still try. I do still wear them when I'm thinking about it and I remember. But to be honest, it's just not in the forefront of my mind anymore. It's just got so normal that the motivation, the excitement for the progress and the change has just gone. And it's kind of sad, but also, you know, I've had all that. I've had that exciting first 6 months to a year where things were changing drastically in my mouth, and it was really exciting to look at. But as I've already explained, the past year I haven't had that. There haven't been these drastic movements. They've been very subtle, and it's been, you know, quite boring at times. So I just wanted to mention that. But you know, that said, my teeth are still tracking. My orthodontists don't have any issues. Occasionally I have to wear the trays a little bit longer than a week, but on the whole, you know, things are working. Yeah, the other thing I wanted to mention is, you know, since the last video, I've really gained so much confidence in how my teeth look. I've started smiling more in public. There are now photos of me scattered around with my teeth on show. If someone takes a group photo or something and it goes on Facebook, I've made a conscious effort now to smile properly, and it feels good. It feels really good that I'm at that stage where I don't have to be embarrassed anymore. It is a joy. It's really quite bizarre how this is such a big thing for me, and it's something that I think about, but all my friends and family, they might see me smile and not really notice that I'm actually smiling. You know, it probably doesn't shock them like it does me if, you know, I look at a photo or something. So that's been really quite a nice experience, and it's really quite special to see how this has impacted my life in such an incredibly positive way. The only thing that perhaps sometimes holds me back is the colour of my teeth. So with all the attachments and things that I've had on here, they did get quite yellow to begin with. They're not too bad these days, but what I really look forward to is some kind of whitening treatment at the end of all this, because if there's one thing that stops me from smiling occasionally, it might be just my awareness of, you know, the colour of my teeth, and they're not as sparkly white as perhaps other people, but also I don't think it's something that other people are noticing. It's just me. It's just me comparing my teeth with other people and wanting that degree of perfection. But we will get there. I'm sure that'll happen at some point, but I've just got to be patient. On the topic of confidence, I just also wanted to mention something that took place earlier this year. I've always had a little interest in theatre. I've performed in a few shows, a few Amdram shows here in my hometown years ago, but earlier this year I found myself in a position, because I was back here in Boston for a little while, where I could perhaps take part in another show. It just so happens they were putting on a production of My Fair Lady, and in a wild turn of events I decided to audition for this show, and I ended up getting the part of Freddie Eynsford Hill in this Amdram production of My Fair Lady, and it was just so fun. It was so nice to be able to do that again and get on stage and make a whole bunch of friends along the way. It was really quite special to be able to do that at this point in my life after having all this work on my teeth. It just gave me this whole new level of confidence. I was able to, get up there, perform and sing and smile, and I just wouldn't have been able to do that like a few years ago. A few people asked me about how Invisalign was going, and I'd say to them, like, I probably wouldn't be doing this show if I hadn't have done this. It's really made things like that so much easier for me, and I'm aware of that, and I really appreciate that. One last thing I want to mention, and this is one of the things that makes me a little concerned that I might have a few more aligners to go after these. Now, I've had no issues with my bite throughout the entire Invisalign process. My bite has always been pretty good, pretty comfortable. I've never noticed any drastic changes until this set of refinements. Something has happened in the past 10 trays perhaps that I'm not very comfortable with, and it's to do with my back teeth here on my right. Essentially, they've started coming much closer together to achieve what I assume is a closer, more uniform bite all around. But what I've actually experienced is these teeth have come too close to each other, and it's actually really off-putting. If I take my aligners out and relax my jaw and close my mouth, the first thing that happens is these back teeth just bump into each other, and it feels really strange. If I move my jaw forward a little bit, it's better, and all my teeth kind of come together, but it still doesn't seem right. And if I were to kind of rotate my jaw, all I can feel is my back teeth on this side rubbing against each other, and it's really strange. I don't really like it. It might be something that I'll have to get used to, but I'm going to mention it, and I'm going to see what my orthodontist thinks, because I have a feeling, or I'm hoping they agree that these teeth shouldn't be meeting like this. And what I assume it will mean is perhaps a new bunch of aligners to perhaps correct that bite for those back teeth. Now, I have no idea. I'm not an expert on these things. All I know is that this doesn't feel comfortable. And if my orthodontist was to say, okay, you're done, your teeth are fine, I would probably have to say, no, hold on, I'm not comfortable with this. So I just wanted to mention that, because that may well determine what the next few months look like. We'll see what my orthodontist says about that in a few weeks, and it might mean that I have a new bunch of trays throughout the summer, beyond the 10 that I have left. Alright guys, that brings me to the end of Invisalign Diary number 6. I hope you found this interesting. I hope I haven't blabbed on for too long in too much detail. I just felt you guys deserved to know exactly what's been happening over the past 18 months, and I think I've pretty much covered everything in the order that they happened. Honestly, it's hard to figure out myself, but yeah, it's been quite a roller coaster. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Let me know if you would be happy with this result, if there's anything else you would do differently, because I think I'm about there, guys. I think I'm about there. 3 years of this. Good Lord. To all those of you that have stuck with me and been watching all of these diaries, I thank you. Thank you for your patience. I know I'm not the best at uploading these things in a timely manner, but all I can say is that I really like to sit down and think about what I'm going to say. I like to have a bit of a plan, and I want to give you guys all of the facts. So unless I'm in a position to do that, I don't make one of these videos. So once again, I apologise that it's been so long, and hopefully it won't be that long until the next video. Hopefully I will finish Invisalign this year. Surely I've got to be done with this year. What do you reckon? Alright guys, thank you for watching, and I will see you probably towards the end of the summer. August will officially mark 3 years with these, so expect an update around that time. Until next time, take it easy folks, and I'll see you soon.